Okay, I think it's coming up to 10, so I think it might be best for us to start. Got quite a big group today, so I'll ask that everybody can make sure they are mute. And what we'll do is you can type in questions as we're going on through, and then at the end, because of the large group, we can just raise your hand, and then we can then deal with questions at the end. But perhaps starting from the beginning, my name's Lance Maring. I'm a remuneration consultant with Willis Towers Watson. We're quite excited today for today's presentation on the Patterson Plus online grading tool. I've been involved in job grading myself since 2003, and in particular with Patterson grading as well since 2003. And I remember from the old days on where everything was handwritten and we had to write reports for every role. So going online and with these online tools, it's so much easier to do the grading process and to have the grading results. And we're quite excited with the tool that we've developed. It was initially developed around 2016, but we've updated it, of course, and from our learnings from the last few years, and it's a lot better, quicker, easier system. But today, Robin Murray will be doing the presentation on the system itself. And Robin and I have been working together for many years, since 2005. And Robin is a great specialist in grading, and we work on many projects together. We go into organizations, we look at the roles in the organizations, we look at the structures in the organizations, we put in the grading systems, we then do all the exciting stuff, the salary analysis. But I'll let Robin take over. And Robin, if you're ready, would you like to proceed?
Yeah, thanks, Lance, for that great introduction. Hello and welcome to you all. It's a great day here in KZN. The sun is shining, but I'm more pleased to be presenting to you today on the Patterson Plus electronic grading tool. So I'm just going to be sharing my screen and pull up the PowerPoint for today's session. And there we go. Just shout when it's up.
Yes, it's up, Rob.
All right, so I think let's jump straight into it and have a look at the agenda for today. We're going to start with going back to basics. So the nuts and bolts of what job evaluation really is, meaning and definition. We're then going to look at what is the best choice, the criteria when choosing a job evaluation system. I'm going to be introducing to you the actual Patterson Plus, giving you the highlights and the features, as well as digging a little bit deeper into the methodology and the science behind the tool. And then I think what we've all been waiting for today is that live demonstration when we do an interactive session and actually grade a job. As Lance mentioned, please feel free to put up your hand and put in the Q&A box, and we will obviously address the questions right at the end of the session. Evaluate. So from the screen, what I really want you guys to focus in on are those bolded words. So as we go through the definition, we've got job evaluation is the process of determining systematically and objectively as possible the relative worth of one job to another without regards to personalities or existing structures. And I really want you to take away from the statement is that job evaluation is actually a science. You need to develop some kind of criteria, standard sets and norms that you can actually measure your jobs against. And of course, this has to be done very objectively and impartial in the process. Because Lance and I can't stress enough when we do our training sessions, we're involved in grading committees, that job grading is about grading the job and not the people that perform the job. If we look at the purpose, then we come to the purpose is to achieve and maintain an equitable distribution of basic wages and or salaries according to the level of positions that you've created. So once you've gone through the grading process and you've developed that graded hierarchy, the next step would then be to align pay. But of course, the first step then would be to look internally and look at your grades against your pay scales and to make sure that you're paying internally fair and equitable, and then turn to market and see if you're being competitive to the external market. And I think this talks quite strongly to the new legislation that's been implemented in terms of equal pay for equal value of work. All right, so what should we be looking out for when we want to purchase a grading tool, or implement a job evaluation system. So in those blocks, we've kind of highlighted a few of the key criteria. So the first thing is the implementation of the system should be done fairly quickly and easily. And I say that tongue in cheek because it all depends on the size of the organization, the number of jobs that you have to grade. But I think if you put in your structures, you have a formalized grading committee, a custodian driving the project, you've got your timelines set, etc. You know, you want to wrap up a project of this nature within a couple of months. The system should be practical and adaptable, and that is to suit your business needs and the organizational structure. So, you know, some companies are quite unique in nature, and you want a system that can give equal recognition to your scarce and critical and quite unique roles. Something that is simple and easily understood, and you'll see when I do the demo how user-friendly the Patterson Plus tool actually is. Looking at market surveys. So once you've, again, done your grading and you want to align it to pay and you're looking for a reputable sort of survey to purchase, then it's always nice to do a bit of a sanity check. So for example, if you've got a Patterson system and you buy a survey that's got your modal grades, you can align your receptionist, for example, at a Patterson B1, and does that align with the modal grade from the survey, being the most frequently occurring grade in the market, also being a B1. If you're using Paromnies, that would come out as a 15 correlation. Then you've got a system that can be conveyed to all levels. So in other words, if you want to be transparent and do a full-on communication exercise, you can then define the methodology and explain it to all staff. And then the final point, of course, coming back to that definition, where we can grade all our jobs from the highest role, potentially being the CEO, right down to your most junior role in the organization, using the same system. So it's really a one-stop shop for all your jobs. Let's look at Patterson Plus and its features. Okay, so as we mentioned, it's an online grading system that is exceptionally user-friendly. The system combines the best of traditional Patterson. So let's face it, Patterson is a great system. It's robust. It's been around for a number of years. So it really wasn't our intention to deviate away from the core methodology of Patterson, being the level of decision making, but rather to improve on that. And we did it in two ways. The first was in the step one of banding the role. We've created a decision making tree which will guide us in line with the banding characteristics. And the second approach was to expand on those subgrading factors. So we've now got more, but more importantly, we've improved the objectivity in the process by giving clearly defined statements that get captured along with a scorecard to give the graded outcome. So those are two great features that we've improved on the system. For me, the third point is once we've graded the job and gone through the process, the end result is a one-page audit sheet that encapsulates the scorecard. And that can be downloaded in Word, PDF, or Excel. So you can always just send it in a PDF format through to the line manager to give the results, as well as to HR, where they can attach it to the job description. It goes down in the history books, and there you've got a clear record to reference in the future. The thing that we also looked at was the different elements, if you've got supervisory management responsibilities, and then we gave equal recognition for those specialist roles by looking at continuation of skill or expert knowledge. Let's go into the methodology of the Patterson Plus tool and Patterson itself. So I don't want to give you a full training session on Patterson, that's not my intention, but really just to highlight some of the features. So here for the first time, we actually see the Patterson methodology in its essence. So we know that there's 6 levels, F being the highest, going down to A, sticking to the Patterson methodology of decision making. So at the F band, we expect these jobs to be making policy decisions. So setting the strategy, the vision, and the mission for the organization. Moving down to the E band, we talk about programming decisions, so outlining the strategy. D band, interpretive decisions. So these are the implementers. We could find our management team here, or those professional technical roles. where, excuse me, where we've implementing the policy by using our people, we using our resources and our budgets. Then we've come down to the C band, where we've got routine decisions. These are really your sort of specialist skilled roles, where they would be following the routine, the systems and the processes. And they would be able to problem solve at this level, diagnose, troubleshoot information. B band, we've got your semi-skilled, making automatic decisions, because most of the tasks and duties are quite procedurized in nature, coming down to your A band, where we've got your defined decisions. So the first step then would be to band the role, and like I mentioned, not only do we have the banding characteristics, we also have that decision-making tree. The next step, once we've banded a job, is to determine the subgrade. So within Patterson, not looking at A band because there's 3 levels, but all the other bands have 5. So how do we determine where does the job fall? We know that potentially it could be in a C band, but where does it fall between the 1 and the 5? And we've created these subgrading factors, starting with variety. So variety talks to different tasks and duties that one may have to perform, but we mustn't confuse variety with volume, because volume talks to more of the same. Then we have complexity. Complexity is those interconnected, diverse tasks that maybe have an element of the unknown to them. We have cycle of activities. So that's generally your time frames to run an operation, a task, or a project. We have your problem-solving clues. How do you solve problems? Through the information that you receive, analyze, and interpret. Is it through just experience? Is it through experience and a qualified formal education, etc.? We've got result management, accuracy, tolerance, and speed of work. So, you know, how accurate do you need to be in performing your tasks? Is it 0 tolerance? Sorry, I've got a bit of I need some water. Work pressure. Work pressure can come in 2 elements. So at your lower levels, where it's generally physical in nature, you may be exposed to harsh conditions, heat, noise, etc. At more of an academic level, C band upwards, it could be more time driven in terms of deadlines. And then, of course, at executive, you've got that element of risk. We then looked at the subgrading factors on supervision.
Robert, do you want to, sorry, it's Lance here. Do you want to grab some water quickly? I'll just take over for a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Lance.
Okay. Sure, sorry. Yeah, so just the last 2 there, Shaman, the same thing happened to me yesterday when I was doing a presentation. Also didn't need a glass of water. But the final 2 factors in the levels there is supervision. So we have a look at then the responsibility of the role in managing others. And when we talk about supervision, it's about assigning tasks, assessing performance, and initiating discipline. So in the supervision, there will be within the same band or at a lower band. And then lastly, we have a look there at continuums of skills and expert knowledge. So we divided that up into the skill sets required for the role in terms of advising up into a higher band. And that could be through acquired skills, which is a continuum of skills, or there may be a requirement for expertise knowledge, or expert knowledge, for additional qualifications for a role. So one that we're typically looking at a master's level, honors master's level, some sort of professional qualification that's required for the role in order to be making specialist advising decisions. So, Robin, I think you can take over then the next slide.
Yeah, so as Lance mentioned, so the supervision, you know, if you're a typical manager or supervisor, we take recognition for that. But if you really are the specialist, then we can give equal recognition there on the continuation of skill or expert knowledge. So the last that I'm going to pull up is really the end result. So once you've gone through the process, you can develop a grade map like you see in front of you, where we've got our Patterson bands running at the top, A to F. You've got your grades with your subgrades, and then you've got your management team, and you've got your professionals. So you can see you can come out at the same point, no matter which career path you take. So it's quite interesting to see here at the management level and the professional level in the D band, how we can align our jobs. So from here, I just want to stop sharing and reshare the end result. All right, just shout when it's come up.
Oh, yes, it's come up, Robin.
Perfect, thanks, Lance. All right, so this is really the end result after you've graded a job on the tool. When I mentioned that one-page audit sheet, so you'd have your company name, you can put in the job code, you can put in the job title, the graded outcome. This particular job resulted in a D5. This is quite important when we set up your structure. So you put in the business unit, that could be the company itself or subsidiary, the division, the department, and then you can even add in the section. From your job description, you can put in the job purpose, and you'll see the last graded date. As we come down, we've said it was a D5, so here will be the banding descriptors. These are all the banding characteristics, and you want to achieve at least an 80 to 100% match on these banding characteristics that would have been validated with that decision-making tree. If we scroll down a little bit further on the screen, you'll see your subgrading factors to the left, and then the statements that we selected to validate our score. So here on management of varied functions, which will include revenue generation, sales, production, and budget forecasts. And that would be aligned to a score. I'm going to stop sharing, and I think let's go straight into the tool itself. All right, here we go again. Has it shared?
Yes, it's come up for myself, Robin.
Okay.
It's on the Google page, yeah.
Perfect. So we go to Google. We want to go to www.pexlinks.co.za. It will click on to the home page. And then it will ask for your username and your password, which you'll put in. Your login. And the beauty about the system is with that username and password, confidentiality is maintained at all times. It is a multi-user site. So not only do you have access to the Patterson Plus tool, if you have purchased one of our salary surveys, you can then go and access your salary surveys directly off the same site. We've got all our contact details, so our sales team and all our consultants. So please feel free to email us or contact us. The first thing, I think, if you do buy the tool, it's essential to download the user manual. That really is your Bible. It's your guideline. It lays out all the rules of the system, the terminologies, the definitions that you can refer to, as well as it gives you the full Patterson methodology in detail, all the banding characteristics and the subgrading rules. So you can download that. It comes out as a PDF and you can then save it. The next step would be to set up your structure. So you'd go to set up company structure. And you can see I've set up a few dummy ones here for examples. So for today's purposes, we're going to call this company ABC. You would then implement that and then fill in the division. So again, we've just pre-populated it. This particular job is in the operations division. You will then just click plus and you will go down to which department is the job. You will then pre-populate that, engineering department. Click on, and then you add finally the section that they fall under. So here we've got company ABC, the division is operations, the department is engineering, and the section of engineering is mechanical. The next step, once you've set up your business structure, is to grade. Okay. So we're going to create a job now. Very simply, we're going to use a mechanic as an example. Type in the job title. You can put in a code. And you need to populate all these drop downs. So here we've got our setup that we can refer to. Business unit, ABC. Operations, division. Department, engineering. Section was mechanical. Job purpose. And you can again just cut and paste this. Okay, moving on. So once we've pre-populated the top section, we now want to actually band the role. So we use this by referencing the decision-making tree, which guides us, and then we can do the sanity check with the banding characteristics. So bearing in mind, the example for today is a mechanic, which is an artisan. It starts at the F band. It's a yes or no approach. So step one, banding the role. And you read through these statements and see if they're applicable. If they're not, you click to the no. Is responsible for the mission and vision of the organization in its real question of where is this business, where do we want to be, and how are we going to get there? Is this role involved in the developing of long-term policy decisions within the widest limits of discretion for the business? Do these decisions involve answering the following questions? What business are we in? What is the purpose? And will these decisions impact the industry or even the economy? So clearly not the right band. So we would then just go to no. Simple drop down, moving you down to now the E band questions. Once again, same process, read 1 down to 3. If it's applicable, you would select yes. And you would then come to your banding characteristics to do your validation of the banding. Once again, I mentioned you need to get at least an 80 to 100% match here. If not, we then just hit the restart. It takes us back to the beginning. So we know this role is not F, not E, potentially not D either. My gut feel is more in the C band. So we'd read that and we'd say, does this job require a thorough understanding of the specific disciplines, theory, systems behind the processes used in the job before the job can be done successfully? Does the job have a predetermined end result? Does the job have choice in interpreting, analyzing, and developing work solutions to achieve the set end result? So I think we're in the right band. We would then select yes. It would take us to the banding characteristics of a C band and highlighting some of these features. So C band, knowledge of a specified integration of operations or discipline would be required. Combination of integrated operations where the end result is predetermined. For me, this is a big one. Diagnosing of problems and solution development according to the varying changing work situation. So in other words, they'll be able to analyze, interpret, troubleshoot, come up with solutions and present them to management. And of course, here we've got the artisan trade qualification, which really does talk to our mechanic. So we're 100% convinced now that we've completed step 1 and it's a C-band role. How do we determine the subgrade? So here we've got our subgrading factors. It's a drop down again, and 4 statements will appear in front of you. We read these statements 1 through to 4 consecutively, choosing the most applicable statement that best describes your job. And it's good to give a practical, workable example to substantiate and validate that score. So let's go through them. Variety, remember, different tasks and duties, not volume of work. So tasks consist of a variety of elements within a single discipline. Works within a single discipline and needs basic knowledge and experience of different disciplines. Work consists of a variety of elements within that single discipline and or control of semi-skilled staff. So really, we will be looking at the organogram, making reference to the job description, looking at the reporting relationship and asking ourselves, do any jobs report directly into this position? Today we can say, yes, in fact it does. It's got an artisan assistant. Where is that artisan assistant being graded? Could be in the A band or even the B band. So we can reference this statement. The work consists of a variety of elements within that mechanical discipline and controls an artisan assistant. So we're happy with a 3. Could the job potentially move to a 4? Understanding the interaction of a range of disciplines where the competency of at least one discipline is at an advanced level, or the direct supervision of skilled staff. No, they're not looking after skilled employees, and I don't think we need an advanced level. So we would default back down to a 3. And Lance and I always err on the side of caution, because it's very easy to upgrade someone than to downgrade someone. So we just select the 3. Same process, we would score the complexity element. And I'm not going to read them all through to you today, but basically you can see it's the same process. For me, this one jumps out. Works within a discipline where the information supplied varies and analysis is required to get the correct solution. Definitely, as a mechanic, you need to analyze the problem, problem solve, troubleshoot, and come up with a solution to fix the machine. So I would be happy with a 3. Moving down to cycle of activities, just to refresh, cycle of activities talks to tasks and duties that one may have to perform and how long it takes to run that operation, that project, etc. So we know there needs to be a quick turnaround for an artisan. So I think tasks take up to a month to complete would certainly suffice. It probably would take far less than that, unless they're waiting on a part, etc. Information clues. All right, I just talk about problem solving on this one. And an interesting point to note that generally what we score on complexity, we would like to mirror in problem solving. So for example, I scored a 3 on complexity. Ideally, we're aiming for a 3 on problem solving. A 2 would be okay, a 4 would be okay, but I would challenge or query if we scored at a 1, because, you know, if the complexity is at a 3 and we're only solving level 1 problems, maybe there's a bit of a disconnect there. So let's look at the 3. So the information clues that we are solving may have to be identified by interpretation based on company practice, previous experience, and theoretical knowledge. So that could be your trade knowledge, and of course at this level you'd expect 3 to 5 years experience. So we'd have our 3. Coming down to result management, accuracy, tolerance, and speed of work. So the processes and procedures determine the accuracy. Accuracy is required within the broad performance parameters, while speed of output is of equal importance, definitely. So the artisan needs to be accurate in fixing the machine, but they need to be timeous in getting that machine up and running so production isn't lost. So I would go with a 2. Then we've got work pressure. So number 1, 2, and 3, again, we would just select the most applicable statement. 2 for me talks about unpredictable deadlines. I think that is the nature of the work. So I would go with a 2. Those are the set top factors that we look at. Then we move to the step 3, where we now distinguish, does the job have supervisory responsibilities, or are they potentially a specialist role, even a skilled expert subject matter guru? So in the C band, we get the full option of supervision, continuation of skill, and expert knowledge. So let's start with supervision. Supervision is either no, or we can explore. Now, supervision is an important one to sort of define up front. So first off, does this job have jobs that directly report into this position? If the answer is yes, then I always question, okay, if you got supervisory responsibilities, do you have the right to assign your team members tasks? Do you have the right to initiate discipline? And do you have the right to assess performance? If not, I would query potentially that role hasn't got direct supervision, but is rather coordinating or having a mentoring function. So that needs to be cleared up front, because strictly the rules of the system, we talk about those 3 rules. Assign tasks, initiate discipline, and assess performance. And it doesn't have to be high-level discipline. You know, in the lower levels, it could just be issuing a written warning, for example. Then we talk about how many unique jobs report directly into this position. So it's not headcount, job titles. For today's purposes, we said it was 1 job, and it was an artisan assistant. That was in a lower band. We're in the C band. Potentially that role is an A or B band job. So we would select 1 to 4 unique jobs in a lower band. It does move up to 1 to 4 unique jobs in the same band. So in other words, you've got people in the same band, in this case C band employees, or jobs reporting into you. We spread that supervision a little bit further, where we say 5 or more unique jobs in a lower band, or 5 or more unique jobs in the same band. So that sort of breadth of supervision gets recognized. We will score 1 to 4 in a lower band. Then you've got the option to look at continuation of skill or expert knowledge. It's an either-or approach. So you need to decide what is the most applicable subgrading factor that you want to assign. But before we go there, there's strict rules that are clearly defined in the manual. In order to be applicable for the continuation of skill or expert knowledge factor, the job has to, and we must have completely investigated the top 3 factors of variety, complexity, and problem-solving clues. You need to have scored 4 out of 4 top marks on those 3 factors, and only then, when you've fully explored them to their full extent, are you allowed to apply the continuation of skill or expert knowledge. And as Lance mentioned when I took that water break, oops, running out of session here. Continuation of skill talks to, let me just say, continuation of skill talks to a 2-step approach. So we either say no, because it hasn't met our top marks on variety, complexity, or clues, or yes, in fact, this particular role that we're grading does. And then you've got your 1-step and 2-step approach. So step 1 is talking about the skills and competency and knowledge that are developing. And a step 2 talks about the job having actual elements of work that moves to the next band, and you almost in an advisory capacity, it's feeding information up to your management team. So the job content has elements that meets the rules of the next band. So in this case, D band. Competencies allow high-level input into the D band. In this case, we would say no. Then we come to expert knowledge. Again, this role would score no, but for argument's purposes, if it had scored the top marks on those 3 factors, we would look at a step 1 or step 2 approach. And Lance also talked about that earlier, about solving problems in a short period of time, the knowledge-based theory normally at a postgraduate level, or a registration with a professional body is required. This factor is quite hard to obtain. It's generally reserved for your unique specialist roles that hold what we call sapiential authority. So the right to be heard on the grounds of expertise, possessing knowledge and skill that wouldn't commonly be found in your discipline. So yeah, these roles really are your true specialists, and even up to the D band where they're the subject matter experts advising business and potentially leading industry. So we'll select no for today. We've populated all the drop downs, which allow us now to calculate the job. And there it pops out. C2, in line with the modal grade, in line with market, our mechanic has resulted in a C2. We would then save and accept that. There we see, saved position successfully. The last thing that we want to do now is to view the job. So depending on how many jobs you've graded, you can see we've got a whole database. And of course, this would be confidential to your organization alone. But to streamline this, it is in alphabetical order. We've got an easy search. So we'll go for job title, our mechanic. We know that it's in the C band. We know that it resulted in a C2. And it immediately comes up for us. So the search has been done. And there we can look. Job title, our code that we inputted, our business unit, our division, our department, our section, our grade, and very importantly, the date that it was created. So today's date, obviously being the 8th of October, last grade review date. So in a year's time, if this job has evolved, it will have the existing graded date, but of course, the date that you're now actively regrading. As I mentioned, we can save it in that PDF format, which I showed you, as well as the Word format. A great feature is the export into Excel. I'm going to just load that on, and then I'll have to stop sharing and reshare as I open it up. So this is the summary of the project in essence, where you'll have all your job titles, your codes, etc. And I refer to this as your graded scorecard. So you can obviously filter this information, but again, we've got job title, the code, the business unit, division, department, section, the final grade, when it was created, and the last grade review. And if I scroll across a little bit further for everyone, it then encapsulates the banding descriptors. It's got your score for variety, complexity, cycle of activities, information clues, result management, work pressure, supervision, and then continuation of skill or expert knowledge. And this is a great tool, and I use it frequently when we're doing grading projects at organizations, because then you can start to validate your scorecard against other jobs. So for example, we in the artisan trade now, can we compare some of our electrical positions to the mechanical positions and reference the scorecard? So, you know, do we score them on variety at the same level? Did we score them on complexity at the same level, etc.? So you can start digging deeper into that scorecard and actually do a second validation process before you do the final grade map. So that's really the functionality of the tool. Let's go back to it. And like I said, what we really want to do right in the beginning is to familiarize ourselves, to look at that user manual, download it, look at the methodology behind the tool, the rules of the system, because there are clearly defined rules, particularly with subgrading factors. From today's demo, hopefully you can see that it's a great tool. It's exceptionally user-friendly. We've had great success running very large projects, and I think Lance and I are very proud to be a part of this exercise. I think maybe, Lance, we should open up to some Q&As if people want to chat about the tool, if there's any features that I need to go back to, that they want to explore, etc.
No, cool. Thank you very much, Robin. I think that's great. What we can do is take some questions, and if individuals can raise their hand, and then we can unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask the question. But while we're waiting for that, I would just like to say that the system itself, you can see it's very straightforward. It's just sort of take the mouse, you can click. It's not overly complicated to set up the company structure. It's not overly complicated to add the jobs. You can cut and paste from your job descriptions the purpose to put in there, and to score the roles. It's really a nice process because it just simplifies it. And our experience of doing this with organizations has been very, very positive. You know, we can get quite conflict situations, especially when maybe at the roles where you have the unions involved and there's disputing of job grades. And I find just sitting down slowly and calmly, we're sharing the screen and we work through the process together. And very often individuals might even try to push the role, but as you go through it and you ask the questions, we end up getting up the same results. And maybe individuals are happy with that, maybe they're unhappy with the result if they're pushing a higher grade. But ultimately, it's a really nice tool because it becomes a controlled conversation. So saying, well, now we are discussing the band. Once we determine the band, we can say, okay, now we're discussing the complexity component only. Now we're looking at variety only. Now we're looking at leadership only, supervision. Now we're looking at expertise only. And it's a very much a controlled conversation, and we have the predefined definitions that we need to be using. So yeah, I enjoy it. It makes my life a lot easier. It's especially when we've been, as I said, we've been grading for many years, and to have the history, and you have questions from organizations. Well, how did we get this grade a few years ago? Why did we get the results? You can go online, you can get the tool, you can look at that job grade, and maybe you don't even remember doing the grading of that job. At least you got that job grade report, and they'll tell you how you got that grade result. So I'm just going to check the system. If there's any questions, if anybody's, you can raise your hand and we can ask and deal with any questions.
And Robin, you ones, Lance.
Yeah, Robin, I think you've done a great job today, because the last time we did this presentation, we had a whole lot of questions going on for another 20 minutes or so. But I think we've covered everything today, Robin. Okay.
We have somebody raising their hand. If you just want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi. Oops. Okay. Am I correct to think that you should have already your job description written somewhere and you tick according to the content on the separate job description?
Yes, I think maybe if I can answer that one, Robin, it's important to have the job descriptions in place. In fact, that's one of the most critical thing really, is to actually have your company structure in place and understanding what the organogram is for the role and where the roles are based in the organization. It's often our biggest hurdle is understanding the job. And you know why that becomes a bigger problem is if we don't know where the role fits in the organization. So we must have the structure for the organization up front, and we must have the job description. Now, the job description can be quite confusing because, you know, the textbook will say that you must have a good job description to do job grading. But I'm a bit hesitant with that because everybody writes their job description slightly differently, and the job descriptions are written for different reasons. So what is a good job description? Well, I think a job description is the start. We have a job description, we take that information you have, and then we can discuss that information. So, you know, what I'm trying to stress here is that we don't have to have a perfect document, but we must have a start point where we can review that, and then you can speak to the line manager or even the incumbents in the role. But ultimately, the line manager should know that. But we need to have some formal documentation of knowing what the structure is and knowing where that role fits in that organization.
How about the tasks?
Yes, then of course the tasks would need to be within that job description. You can see how the tasks become important for things like variety and complexity and cycle of activities. So maybe the purpose can give us a good indication of the band for the role, and where the organogram and the purpose tells, okay, it's probably a C band or a D band. But the tasks within it, we need to know that to understand the complexity of those tasks, the variety of those tasks, the cycle of activity of those tasks, the leadership tasks that may be in the role. Lashini, would you like to go ahead and you can unmute and ask a question?
Thanks, Lance. I can't see a chat function in this meeting. That's why we couldn't raise any questions during the meeting. Yeah, the chat function seems to have disappeared. So my question really is for, you know, a company that possibly we used to do our surveys, obviously through Deirdre, and I see she's on the call. You know, yes. Is there a cost involved in using this tool? How would we go about setting it up? Because obviously I work for a global company and they use a different benchmarking tool, but I'm familiar with Patterson from a previous company, and I do like the Patterson grading system compared to the one I'm using now. So how would we go about setting this up, cost, etc.? So yeah.
No, definitely. I think. Sorry, Deirdre.
Sorry, Lance. Yeah, I've actually just added all my details again to the chat box. I'm not sure why you can't see it, because we are using it. A number of other people are using it, but yeah. So we have a number of people asking about the subscription costs, and yes, it is a license, annual license. You can drop me an email. I've just added my email and my mobile number again to the chat box, or I will get back to you each individually. And we can just chat about the subscription and how it works. But it is an annual license for your business.
Thanks, Deirdre. I think Elaine and I will just get in touch with you separately and talk about this.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, maybe if I could just step in there, where you talked about, you know, Patterson would be really your job evaluation of choice, and you're concerned because it may not align with global. You know, South Africa is probably the most common system, in South Africa. And so if it makes sense to the business, there's always the correlation tables. So you can grade in Patterson, you know, in South Africa, and then use the correlation tables to match against your global system. So yeah, there is that approach.
Thanks, Robin.
Any other questions?
I haven't seen any. It's just basically on pricing and the subscription. So I will.
We've got 2 raised hands. I don't know if you can see that. From
I can see the hands, but I'm not picking up the chat. I'm just seeing thanks for the great presentation, Robin.
Okay, cool.
From Virginia. And if there's somebody who is trying to chat, please can you just unmute yourself and speak? Otherwise.
Okay, I'm happy. I have raised a hand. Yeah, thanks for the good and easy presentation. I think the system is now easy to follow. I just want to confirm that I am right to say if we are at C2, like this mechanic artisan that is at C2, then it says to choose the percentile, whether it's 25th, 75th, or 50th percentile. It depends on company affordability. Am I correct?
Yes, I can answer
that. On the grading tables, yes.
Yeah, so that becomes the interesting part where, you know, grading, you know, for example, this engineering mechanic has been a C2 for 100 years now. So the grade itself doesn't change. It won't change. You know, every organization, it should be a C2. It's an artisan level role. Anywhere in the world, it will be a C2. The only difference is that the market in different countries and in South Africa, that's what's changing. So the exciting bit comes, well, where do you actually need to then to pitch that role against the marketplace? And that really comes down to your own organization, the affordability of the organization, the industry that you're in. And the company will have a policy that say, well, we place ourselves at the 10th percentile of the marketplace. We can live with a high turnover of staff. That's fine, because there's going to be other costs there. Or say, no, we need to be at the 25th percentile, or we need to be at the 50th, or some organizations will say we need to be at the 75th percentile. But ultimately, that's a business decision. Where does an organization need to pitch itself against the marketplace to attract the artisans that it requires? So a business where perhaps the artisans aren't critical to the business and they're playing very much a support role, and you may then say, okay, we can probably pitch at the low end in the market, get individuals that aren't too experienced, that they can come in, they can learn, and then they can leave, and we can live with that. And then you can pay the low. So no, these are critical roles to our business. We need to keep the same skill set, the same team all the time. We can't deal with changes. We don't have time to train people up. Then you're going to be paying at the high end of the market to attract individuals that have the skills already and to retain them. So ultimately, it's a business decision where one needs to pay against the marketplace.
Okay, thank you very much, Lance.
Cool, thank you. I think that might be it, unless there's any questions that are typed up, Deirdre.
No, nothing that I'm seeing. Christelle, are you seeing anything that I'm not seeing?
No, Dee, all seems 100.
Thank you.
And maybe I'll just add, there's obviously been a bit of interest in the purchasing of the tool, the cost, the license, etc. But over and above that, we obviously give you guys support in the training, in the methodology, behind the tool, etc. So we don't just sell you the product and then walk away. We're there to guide you through the process and assist you with a full in-depth training session as well that's included.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I'm doing at the moment for an organization that's purchased the system, that they actually had the system for a number of years, and they use a grading committee, and it's a very unionized environment, and they use a grading committee, and they grade all the roles in the organization. And now, of course, when there's disputes, that's when we can step in as outside experts, and we can review those grades and hopefully see what the reasoning is behind. Grading disputes, often it's other things other than grading, and we just come in with a pair of fresh eyes and we make sure, no, the dispute really is about the job grade, and then, okay, it's not a C4, it's a C5 or it's a C3. So we provide support in terms of training in the system, making sure you understand the system, and then once you purchase it, to handle any disputes or any queries that come through. Cool. I think we're coming up to 11 o'clock as well. So I'd like to thank, I don't know if there's any other questions, but I'd like to thank everybody for their time. And as you know, we're more than welcome to and happy to meet with everybody individually and to show you and see how we can assist your organization. And Deirdre will be helping out on the pricing if there's any queries about pricing to purchase the system. But I'd like to thank Robin for going through the presentation with us today, and thank you all for your time.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I know some people couldn't make it today. If you've got any colleagues that missed out, I'm more than happy to set up one-on-one presentations and revisit today's presentation with you. So thanks everyone again for attending. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was informative.
Cool. Thank you very much, Robin.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dee, are you still on the line?
Yeah, just hold on. I just want to stop the recording.